Yo, what about this translation for me? Just questions, like, yeah, just before it started. Well, no, just trying to carry the information. We used to. No, yeah, calm down. Was my brother, because they were poor. And we were living about 150 yards from your office. And when I went down the office, thank you. Because I couldn't speak up to you at the cemetery. Yeah. Hello, how are you? Thank you very much, sir. Don't make me the sign. Oh, well. Wow. Shots now, a lot of noise. I open up, carry that. I ain't looking all around. I'm like, oh God. Go ahead. No, I didn't carry. So, when I do 58, ready to go, right? Just do this final two. No more cycles. No more cycles. For some unknown reason. Some unknown reason that you think back in the day or something drop off. No. You can stick it. There's no enemy. For some unknown reason that you probably have to die or something. So might say so you can just pick it up, talk with it like normal, right? So that you got somebody in the background, but it's like do something. All right. Thanks for your time. Have a good day. Very good, man. So what? So whenever you tell me to make control, I can half over. I interview him.
To around 15:35.
Perfect.
And then it's regular.
That's good. Perfect. That's good.
I'm good, Matilda. You're good. Yeah, it was a fascinating trip. But no, the next one. Well, like, I should. You don't need to. Good afternoon. It is like good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to All Saints Church. We're going to start our
program in exactly 5 minutes' time, so please be seated and please come closer to the front rather than on the back. There's only backsliders in the church. Yes, and those at the back, can you please come and have a seat, please? Thank you so much. Yes. Once again, everyone, good evening and welcome. My name is Tyrone Roach, and my task here is a simple one. First, I'm delighted to see so many old faces and a few old cricketers in the mix. I'm not talking about Sylvester, but a few other cricketers. It's my first the housekeeping, so the toilets are through that door, to the right, and to the right. It's the toilets. And the fire exits are that way and that way. So like the girls do in the, on the plane, that way and that way. Right. I would like to say that I was quite honored when Alan suggested that we have this discussion here at All Saints Church. And thanks to Father Philip for allowing us to do so. I think that's the only honor I'm going to get for doing all this work in the community. But first, I'd like to introduce a long-term colleague of mine who has worked tirelessly with me on many events, and her name is Marilyn Devonish. And Marilyn will be your host for the evening. First, let me tell you something about Marilyn. She's a local councillor in the Watford district. I think she's a Liberal politician. She founded Transformations, a training, consultancy, and coaching company committed to improving and transforming the performance of individuals and organizations. Since decided in November 2000 to go from professional accountancy student to hypnotherapist, NLP's trainer, and life coach, Marilyn has excelled in creating dramatic turnaround not only in her own life, but in those of her clients. Marilyn has excellent interpersonal and communication skills and specializes in accelerative learning and performance enhancement. Please welcome Marilyn Devonish, your host for the evening.
Thank you very much, Tyrone. We're going to be on in just a second, so thank you very much, Tyrone. And for many of you, I'm sure you are fully aware that Tyrone is the man behind the scenes who gets everything organized, chases us all, gets all the biographies in. So thank you very much to Tyrone for organizing, I'm sure, what will be another fantastic event. So in terms of getting started, just a few quick things, just so you are aware. As you walked in, you most likely saw the books at the back of the room from Books and Things. So they are very kindly hosting today. All of the books have actually been signed already. So when you purchase, it's been signed. But if you would like to do a photo with Suez at the end, then that can be arranged. So please make sure you pick up a copy. We'll do some voter thanks at the end of today, because what I want to do and get started is introduce you to Dr. Kerry Hall. So I'm just going to give you a very quick bio, and then we're going to have a brief conversation about her thoughts and recollections of Suez. So just to give you a bit of an insight, with over 20 years experience in tourism and hospitality industries, in the public and private sector, in the capacity of Chief Tourism Development Officer in the Ministry of Transport and Trade, and a consultant for tourism, in terms of being an independent consultant, or also entertainment services at the Barbados Private Trade Team, and as an independent consultant, Dr. Hall gives presentations across the world on the subject of tourism. Over the past 6 years, she's also been the Chief Executive Officer for the Barbados Tourism Product, and in 2013 co-authored a book called Island in the Sun, The Story of Tourism in Barbados. She, of course, has also grown up with Suez, so I thought it would be very interesting if you want to step forward to the microphone. First of all, please give her a very warm welcome. And the first thing I'd like to ask you, please share with us what Suez means to you, because we had a lovely conversation on the online event that we did, and you shared some really fantastic sentiments about what it has been like to grow up with Suez as an influence in your life. So I'd love for you to share some of that with our audience today.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. I would like to thank all of you. It's a distinct privilege, honor, and pleasure to be here with you today, and I thank all of you for coming out and showing my dad some love. I really appreciate that, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Hall family. Well, I've spoken on this topic several times, and it always, makes me fairly emotional each time when I speak to being a child of Sir Wesley Hall. I think the world knows him for his numerous achievements and exploits, particularly on the cricket field. But as I said yesterday, 2 days ago, the launch at Lord's, he's the only person I have come across in my life that every endeavor, every field that he's endeavored to enter, he's excelled in. Maybe cricket, politics, religion, every conceivable area. And even though he's lauded for these wondrous exploits of his, people don't know him as Wes Hall, the father. And I always say that even though he's done wondrous things, the fact that he's, to me, the greatest father in the world is probably his greatest achievement in life. And growing up with my daddy has been very interesting. It's been a very exhilarating roller coaster ride, growing up with Wes Hall. Having a front row seat to his amazing life, the latter part of it, because I would have come around after he finished playing cricket. But my dad has always been a man who's been there for his children. Even though my parents divorced when I was 6, he was always there for us. He used to come for his children every weekend. He couldn't, as we say in Barbados, he couldn't boil water. He couldn't cook. But my mother would allow us to go off with him to fend, to fight up for the weekend. He just was such an exciting man. He was just interested in sports and the arts. And everywhere he went, he took his children with us. So we were exposed from an early age to all these things. His travels around the world as a manager of the West Indies team, as the president of the West Indies cricket. He always made sure that he took us with him. He always wanted his children around him, and he always wanted to expand our horizons. And the greatest gift was travel, meeting new people, experiencing new cultures. It allows us to expand our horizons and to grow as individuals. Watching my father in every endeavor of his life, as I said at his speech, the erection of his statue 2 short years ago, he taught us such valuable lessons, sitting at the foot of Wes Hall and watching how he lived his life just inspired us as children to also want to reach for the stars, want to transform the world as he has transformed it, to make the world a better place. And he's always taught us how to represent and fight for the faceless and voiceless, to respect everyone, no matter their station in life, to treat them as equals. And my favorite is always respect and be respectful, and never judge a man by his zip code, as we tend to do, his lineage, where he went to school, the color of his skin, or the size of his bank account, but rather by the strength of his character. And one thing my dad always taught us, and that was a lesson I learned from just having that front row seat to his life, was to always have the courage of your conviction to stand up and speak out for what is right and just, even if you stand alone. And that's something that's earned me many bullseyes on my back, I must tell you, over the course of my life. But I live my life through the values that I've learned from my father, that I take with me every single day. Even now, he has children now. We're quite old, but he always wants to solve every problem. He always wants to be there for us. Sometimes I'm like, Daddy, we gotta take some hard knocks. That's what builds character in life. And he's been there through all the growing pains for us, and there've been many. And I love my dad infinitely, passionately. And I am so honored to have been the product of his loins, both my brothers and myself. Can I say that in a church?
I think it's perfect to say in the church.
It has been a distinct honor and privilege to watch him, how he lived his life and how it's inspired me to live mine and to want to give back. And as I said, want to transform the world and make it a better place. So that is just a tiny bit about Wes Hall. As I said, he has achieved so much, but I just want you to know, as a father, he also has entered the pantheon of greatness, to be a man, to be a role model, to be emulated and benchmarked by all of us. And as I keep saying, and this is the last thing, because I've also inherited my father's gift of gab, a propensity for loquaciousness and verbosity. That's one of the gifts he gave me. One thing my father has done for his children is the greatest gift that any parent could leave for their child is a legacy of goodwill. And if there's one thing he's done, he is so beloved. He is such a loyal friend, a team player. No man is left behind once my father has anything to do with it. And he is so beloved that the blessings that rain down on him also extend to us as children. And I'm so grateful for that, and I thank my father for that every day. So that's just, I'm sure I've overstayed my welcome, but I hope that you have a greater understanding of the other side of Wes Hall. And to me, that is the most important side. And I thank him for everything, and I thank you for here, as I said, to give him his flowers while he's still with us. We tend to go, and at funerals you hear all the wonderful things that people say. It's been a blessing for me for the last couple of years to travel with my father and hear and see the outpouring of love, and he to see it himself. And that has made all the difference. So once again, I'd like to thank you so much, and that's it for now. Love you, Daddy.
That was absolutely beautiful, seriously. And one of the things that really I found inspiring listening to you first time around and listening to you today, because it can go either way. We've often seen people who have parents or even siblings in the spotlight and they feel diminished by it. You have drawn strength from that and created greatness in your own life as well. So it's just wonderful to hear from you and wonderful to see you.
What you're saying is true. I mean, when you have a famous father, and I think I speak on behalf of all kids of famous people, it could be a little bit daunting. When you have such big shoes to fill, the expectations of you are great. So when people see this great man, they turn to the children and they expect, like, you know, kind of what you're working with. And sometimes it could be a little bit daunting and intimidating when you have such big shoes to fill. But as you said, you just draw down. You can only be who you are. I don't think there will ever be two Wes Halls. I think he's one of the greatest personalities of the last century and this one. And you just know that lightning doesn't strike twice. So what you try to do is just learn from him, look at his life, and try to emulate all the best parts of it. And he has been of service to mankind my entire life. So even if it's subliminally or overtly, I have come up feeling I too have to be of service to mankind in whichever way I can to honor my father's, not memory, honor my father's legacy. So yes.
And what you said about giving flowers, my uncle passed away yesterday evening, did not have a chance to, haven't seen him for a while, so when you talk about giving flowers while people are still here, I think that is so important. So important. So I would say to all of you sitting here, if there is somebody that you appreciate and you have not told them for a while, please make sure that you do so. Now, my final question to you, for the next generation coming up who are finding the world challenging, and even in this day and age feel that the world is somewhat against them in terms of their postcode, their upbringing, their culture, as someone who has that greatness inside of you, what would you say to the next generation who are coming through now?
Yes, I know the challenges. I'm trying to keep my eyes on the millennials and the Gen Zs who are coming after us, and the challenges they're facing are widespread. From eco-anxiety, from climate change and what that will bring, and the world is just a different place. And in some ways, I think we may have made, as my father's generation, who had it challenging, it was a challenging process. I know they have done everything to make life easier for their children. And sometimes I think when we take the struggle away, I think the hard knocks are what builds character. And I do believe that the youth of today, they're definitely different from our generation. So we have to look at, when you look at persons like my father, I think they need to lean in more to what their foreparents would have endured and overcome. Because when you look at people like my dad and what he would have overcome, like I said, this book is phenomenal. This book is really, as I said, a very comprehensive and inspirational treatise on overcoming adversity, overcoming poverty, not letting your station in life at your birth dictate your station in life at the end of your life. You know, and sometimes you have to take the lemons that life throws you and take those and make a big, fat pitcher of lemonade. Easier said than done, but I think our foreparents were born with finer metal than we have because their struggle was so much greater. Things are a little bit easier now in several instances. So I think we need to, people like my father and those like him, who were the trailblazers, who set the course to make life easier for us. I think we need to expose them more to the youth so that they could see their phenomenal stories, they could understand the legacy and don't think that when somebody is old, they could be discarded. Because I think there are a lot of valuable lessons they can learn, and I think they need, in many cases, to probably be toughened up a bit in order to endure and face what is coming. Because life right now, there's so many different challenges and threats globally. It's not for the faint-hearted. And we need to be able to find that mettle, to find that perseverance and resilience that our foreparents like my father had. And that's when I read his book, it was such a page-turner and tear-jerker for me, because I learned so much about my dad that I never knew before, and I looked at him through new lenses after I read his book. And I was like, my God, probably if I read this book 20 years ago, I may be different, I may be, further than I am now, because it would have inspired me. And I hope reading books like that, I hope will inspire Generation X. They need to know that digging deep within, having faith, prayer, resilience, perseverance, that they too could make it through, because what our foreparents had to deal with is nothing compared to what we're dealing now. And they made it through, and the fact that we're here is proof that life went on and they pushed through those hard times.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Please give a very warm round of applause. And so we are now going to start hearing from the man himself and hear about the book. But let me first of all tell you about the person who will be interviewing. So we have Alan Smith here with us today. Welcome, Alan. So Alan is a Barbadian. Yes, please, you can give a round of applause. So Alan is a Barbadian finance executive living in London. He played junior cricket for Barbados and has known Sir Wes Hall for over 5 decades. In terms of his background, he was the honorary treasurer for the 1995 West Indies cricket team tour to here in England, which he was managed by Sir Wes. He co-authored Dreaming a Nation, a book charting Barbados' journey to independence, and he is today going to be interviewing Suez Hall, and we are going to hear about some of their relationship, I'm sure, and also bring out some of the things that you can read more about in the book. So, without further ado, Alan Smith, I'm going to hand it over to you in a few moments, but first, just in case there is anyone in here who has not heard of Suez Hall, I'm going to give you a very brief overview. I'm going to go as quickly as I can because, as you can imagine, it's a big biography. So Suez-Lee Winfield Hall, born 12th of September 1937, is a former Barbadian cricketer and politician. A tall, strong, powerfully built man, Hall was a genuine fast bowler and was renowned for his ability to bowl for very long spells. Hall played 48 test matches for the West Indies from 1958 to 1969. His opening bowling partnership with fellow Barbadian Charlie Griffith was a feature of the strong West Indies team in the 1960s and throughout. And a wicket-keeper and a batsman as a schoolboy, Hall did not take up fast bowling until relatively late. And he was included in the West Indies tour to England in 1957, a little bit before my time, and having played only one test match of first-class cricket. And he made his test debut against India in 1958 and was instantly successful. He took a test hat-trick in Pakistan in 1959, was the first West Indian cricketer to do so. There have been many firsts for Suez, and he bowled the first over in two famous test matches and tied the test against Australia in 1960s and at Lord's Test here in England in 1963. And years of non-stop cricket eventually reduced his effectiveness in his latter years in terms of health and well-being. And then he moved on to serve in politics, both in the Barbados Senate and the House of Assembly, and was appointed the Minister for Tourism in 1987, and was later ordained a minister for the Christian Pentecostal Church. He has been inducted into the ICC Cricket Hall of Fame and the West Indies Cricket Hall of Fame, and in 2012, Hall was made a Knight Bachelor for services to sport and community. That is a tiny, tiny, tiny snapshot of the man you are about to hear from today. So I will hand it over to you, and I look forward to what will be a fascinating interview. So Wes, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Marlene. It really is a privilege and pleasure. There's an African proverb: unless the lion tells his own story, history will always glorify the hunter. Today we are in the presence of one of our lions, and to hear his story. We also have Paul Ackroyd, who has chronicled that story on behalf of Wes. And Paul, if you could just stand up, because we'd really like to thank and acknowledge you for capturing what is really important. We heard about Suez's birthday in 1937. 1937 is a very significant period in Barbados' history because it's the year of the Barbadian riots, which led into so much that formed the nation and to things which form where Barbados is today. So to many ways, Suez's span of life, but everything that he's done is our story. He's been at the center of so much, and so we're really looking forward to it. And even in going to it, there's one story in particular which brings out how Suez has been at the center of many things. Marlon referred to that 1963 over that he was bowling at Lord's. And for those of you who don't know the history of cricket, and it almost is 60 years to the day, it was a famous test match between England and the West Indies. England had 6 runs to win, 1 wicket to go. Colin Cowdrey, the England captain, who had his hand broken earlier, I think it was by you, Wes, that broke it.
Not me, the ball.
The ball came back in. And I actually picked up and read about this story in all places on a book on the British Prime Ministers. And Andrew Marr people know who's this famous current British political commentator, wrote a story which read like this. In reviewing this book, The Prime Ministers, one of the favorite stories is that very last over in 1963 when Wes Hall, so Wes as he is now, was bowling the last over in the Lord's Test. The story goes, it was the only occasion in England's history when it was genuinely at risk from being completely surprised by a nuclear attack. And this is what happened because they said that as Sir Wes was running in to bowl to Cowdrey, every single screen of the ballistic missile early warning system within the Ministry of Defense was displaying the live TV broadcasts of Wes bowling that over. So kind of rather, if the Russians had known that the cameras were on Wes rather than on their missiles, we could have been in a lot of trouble.
Just a minute, Alan.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Yeah. But the